Hey everybody, Secular Spirit here, and I am joined in this live stream by Mikhail. How's it going?
Good evening. Hello.
Yeah, many of you who are regular followers of my channel might recognize the very unique voice of Mikhail and
Yes, the
might be
one and only.
astounded to hear that he is only 18 years old. There you have it. Yeah, I wish I had
Yeah.
that voice when I was 18.
You know, Allah only gifts those He wishes.
True, true. And true story. So when I was a kid, I barely had any facial hair, and yet my younger brother had a thick, big one by the time he was like 15 or something. And so I was
Subhanallah.
cursed by Allah in other ways too. Yeah.
I mean,
So,
at 36 years old, you look considerably young.
thank you
So,
very much. It's
so
it's
I
all
yeah.
it's all to do with my moisturizer regimen. I'll uh I'll mention which products I use at the very end.
That's to go all the idiotic
15%
sheikhs.
discount if
That's
you use
for all
my
the
name as the code.
inshallah. That's for all the idiotic sheikhs who say that men can't be feminine once in a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah, exactly. I know that
What a
that's one of
shame.
the many reasons why I left Islam. Just kidding. So, yeah.
Yeah,
So to
not
the
really.
subject of this video. So this idea
Yeah.
actually came to me through one of my Patreon supporters, and I'll mention
Mhm.
here that you can join my Patreon for free or pay for one of the tiered memberships. The link is in the description below. But one of the Patreon supporters, I think I did see him in the live chat. Nathan came up with the idea for this episode, and the idea was, what questions would ex-Muslims want to ask the Prophet Muhammad if they could? And I added a little bit of it to make it a bit more fun. If we could travel back in time, 1400 years to the past, to visit Muhammad when he was still alive and kicking, and just see him face to face and ask those questions. And so I immediately thought of questions that I would want to ask him, and
Mhm.
I put a call out to viewers to suggest their own questions, and I got a whole bunch of interesting ones, and I managed to whittle it down to about 10 questions. And we're gonna do two things. So we're gonna the two of us, we're going to kind of do our best attempt at figuring out what the real life Muhammad would say in terms of a response to those questions, and
If
that's
he spoke
based
English,
on,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
If he spoke English, yeah.
If he spoke English, sure, yeah. In terms of what we were taught growing up as Muslims, what's in the Quran, and just like what the scholars and the ulama would have said about all of these
Hmm.
things, and then we're going to discuss what we think about those answers, from our context as ex-Muslims, living in 2026, 1400 years later. So the list of questions is in the video description if you want to check it out. And I do want to bring your attention to the poll question as well before we get started. So the poll question, and you can vote anytime you want, and you can change your vote if you change your mind.
Can I
The
announce it?
question is, oh yeah, please go ahead.
The question is, ladies and gentlemen, who would you visit if you could travel back to the past? The categories are Muhammad, baby Hitler, Buddha, and Jesus.
There you have
Choose
it.
wisely, otherwise
Choose
you die.
wisely. Yeah, yeah. And whatever you end up doing when you visit baby Hitler, that's totally up to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, just just included that as a as
You
a
know, there was a
fun
thought
extra option.
experiment. There was a thought experiment I did with a friend once. We were discussing what would it, how would you kill baby Hitler to then save all the 6 million Jews who would later take the lives of? And I said that's paradoxically impossible because you'd only kill him knowing what he did in the future. And by the time you knew what he did in the future, you'd go back in the past where it didn't happen, so your knowledge would disappear.
You just explained why every Hollywood movie about time travel does not make sense.
Exactly. Because, like, yeah, exactly. Like, unless if you're a photon, reality exists for you. So
Mhm.
I don't get the whole. I, I like to entertain it, but I just think it's paradoxically impossible.
Yeah,
But anyway,
yeah.
let's carry on with the
Yeah,
questions.
let's carry on. Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
I just wanted to highlight this comment from a secular jihadist. Thank you so much for tuning in.
I
Who
picked
for the
Jesus
poll
because I
question?
know he never actually existed.
Whoa, controversial. I'm open to
Controversial.
the fact that there might have been a guy named Jesus. Definitely not the son of God or anything like that. But
Yeah,
yeah, who knows? Muhammad definitely did exist. At least we know that.
we
But
have
again, who knows what he
a
was all
question
about.
for you though. Do you think that Jesus in Christianity could be the same figure that is could be the exact same figure that is in Islam? Or do you think, like, how did he even arrive in Islam to begin with?
Jesus,
Yeah, Isa.
Isa.
Yeah.
Well, we can maybe talk about this in terms of one of the responses to the question, one of the questions we're going to discuss. But
Hmm.
I think Muhammad was exposed to Jewish people and Christians, and so must have had some kind of knowledge of Christianity at the time, right? So
Oh yeah, maybe you including part of the timeline, part of his old anime. Yeah.
yeah, who knows? Who knows? But yeah, let's jump to the very
Question
first
one.
question one, and that question is Muhammad. So let's set the stage. We've traveled on time on a a digital buraq, let's say, of some kind, time traveling buraq, and we have arrived.
Beautiful day sky,
Yeah,
large desert,
yeah, yeah.
small towns.
It's around 610, let's say 615 AD, and so Muhammad he has received the revelation, and he's starting to spread Islam. So here's the question, the first one: did you make up Islam, or do you truly believe it's real? What do you think Muhammad would say?
Honestly, if you were to answer honestly, he'd try to proselytize. But if you were to no, sorry, if you were to answer usually, he would proselytize. But if you were to answer honestly, he'd say, "I created Islam because I needed a way to control the people." Because from what I know of his history, from what you can study any history, religion is a great way to control people because you're taking advantage of the one thing that every human being covets dearly, right? So, and obviously back then, Muhammad was a merchant. Knowledge was practically a promise to him, it was a guarantee. He understood everything from wherever he traveled. His wife also, his first wife, Khadija.
Mhm.
I think the reason why he created Islam is because as he led more wars, as he grew stronger, as his social standing started to advance, he needed a way to control the herd. He needed a way to loop in the people, and the only way he managed to do that was not only by preaching religion, but by preaching pure monotheism, still echoing that chain of celestial dictatorships.
Mhm. The one thing I always wonder about, like, what was he motivated by power and control? So he came from the most powerful, wealthiest family uh, in Mecca, and he was very well off in terms of having a rich older wife. So one part of me thinks, why go through this? And this is actually going back to what I was taught when I was a young Muslim. Why go through this fundamental life change that actually pulled away the bricks of the foundation of the comfortable life that he had? And that was used as an argument of, this is true. Like, he actually received the revelation, because why would he do this? What do you think of that argument?
I think the answer to that question is the same thing I posed earlier, which is he did it precisely for power and control. I mean, let's think about it. This is a thought experiment, right? If you're in 7th century Arabia and you are happen to be like have the upper hand on people in terms of like social standing, in terms of economy, in terms of geopolitical, in terms of more geopolitical sense, restricted obviously to one area, you'd have to realize that you're going to want control, you're going to want power, like be especially back then. So society was extremely stratified. You're going to want power, you're going to want dominance, you're going to want control, not because you're evil, well, that's debatable, but also because you just want to survive and
That's
to
how society works.
exactly
the the
you
tribal leaders who have the most power are the ones who are the most well off, and that also secures a better future for your immediate relatives, your friends, your children.
also, who wouldn't want to have 12 wives?
Dream scenario.
Peace and honor.
Ashley K asks, was Khadija wealthy? Yeah, so that's what the narrative is anyway. That she was very well off, and that Muhammad helped her with her business. So
Surprising considering she was a woman in 7th century Arabia. Great
exactly, and
achievement.
that's used as an example of why Islam is actually very progressive toward you. You have to let me finish speaking before you start laughing.
So I knew what you were saying. I knew what you were gonna say. That's why I found it funny.
Progressive towards women was what I was going to say.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, Islam is a feminist religion and all that bullshit. But yeah,
Yeah,
um, brilliant. Exactly. I'm glad you expanded on that.
yeah. And I just wanted to highlight this super chat from Grorgagor
I
J.
think his name
Okay,
is
well,
Gorge Gorge.
Greg. Okay. Thank you so much for the super chat. Uh, they say long time fan. Just wanted to say we love you and please continue making content. Thank you so much for that. Okay,
Thank you.
so yeah, the only other thing I wanted to talk about this is because I agree with you. I think he would likely just proselytize. I did want to talk about the theory that he truly did believe it. Like he did have some sort of. Here's one possible theory that he did have some sort of spiritual experience when he was up in the cave. I'm not going to get into whether he consumed any psychedelics or anything like that. I've heard jokes about that from people in the ex-Muslim community. I don't know about that, but maybe he had some kind of spiritual experience and truly believed in that he was getting revelation from God, the creator of the universe. But then as it grew and turned into I think there's no other word for it but like a cult where he got more and more power, he started believing his own imagination, if that makes sense, and started using it in self-serving ways to, again, as you mentioned, to assert his power and control over this community, and so on and so forth. What do you think of that?
Um, I mean, that's unfalsifiable.
It
I
is.
mean, we can grant that. We can grant that for the sake of argument, but it's as simple as this. There are many hadiths that, I mean, I can't really note them down right now because it's going to take me a bit to find them. I don't have all of them saved. Stupid me. But the reason there's some hadiths that talk about how Muhammad was experiencing like delusions, like, you know, like strange hallucinatory experiences. We can say that that's proof that he was kind of deluded by his own brain to believing that Allah actually did exist. But for the most part, I think he was mostly, I don't think he strictly believed Allah existed. I just think he believed that there was something after life, like a, I think he was a bit of a classical theist, right? Like just someone who believes in like a god, not who doesn't affiliate with a specific religion. I just think from there, all the things we know about now that make up Islam, the unique religion, Jahannam, Jannah, Malaika, angels, hell, heaven, all that stuff. I think he just built that on his own. I think through his journeys, through his missions, through his nationwide progressions, I think that's what helped him decide from here, how do I build up this belief system that I need. Maybe we can, if we even were to grant that, we can even say not only does he want to control those, but maybe he felt like he was righteous in doing so, securing himself in both the real world and the afterlife.
And maybe he genuinely thought that the community would be better off with him in power, which is true of a lot of uh, ambitious leaders of aspirations to power. So yeah, I suppose we'll
Understood.
never know. We'll never know. Let
Also, I want to highlight. Can I highlight a comment, please?
Yeah, yeah, please.
So this person, Ashley K2197, says, "I'm a questioning Muslim, and when I went on Umrah, I low-key freaked out because I felt like I was engaging in a cult ritual, seeing all those people walk around the Kaaba. And I want to say, whoever you are, you have highlighted a very very good point. I've been on Umrah only once, and that experience was so weird. I saw a guy crying and smacking his head on the floor. I saw people crying on a black stone and like kissing it. I saw people like champion. I saw people fight each other. I was in a fight myself, and I was 16. That experience really, like, it really affirmed me in my apostasy because it made me think, wow, these people are behaving like animals.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, but if that's disrespectful to say, but I was appalled by their behavior. I
Mhm.
didn't think I was surrounded by humans. I thought I was surrounded by just angry bats. So I want to
You
highlight that.
reminded me. You reminded me of something that I heard about when I was still a Muslim. I think I maybe was around 14 at the time, and there was this big news story about how multiple Muslims had been killed because when it came to that stage where you're supposed to symbolically throw the stone uh, at Shaitan, there were people who were, because there was such a mass of people, there were people who were far back, way far behind where you're supposed to throw the stone. They were still throwing the stones anyway, and hurting people in front of them, hitting them in the head.
My goodness. I also I did hear a news report that apparently like some well, this is normal. I don't know why, but when some people just like to kill each other during, you know how you have to do tawaf, like circling the
Yeah,
Kaaba. Some people like just fight each other and they end up killing each other. I have no idea why it
unbelievable.
gets that serious. I don't even think that's something Muslims would condone.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, thank you for highlighting that, Ashley. You brought up a
Yeah,
very good
thank you,
point.
Shashley. Yeah, let's move on to question two for Muhammad. So let's see. So Muhammad, why would God create people he knew would go to hell? And I want to explain this question a little bit more in case Muhammad or you, the viewer, don't fully understand it. So, if you are to believe what you're taught as a Muslim, God created everything, He created all of us. He's all powerful, all knowing. So, He knows exactly what's going to end up happening. So, when He created the universe, He also knew, let's say I'm going to go to hell. He knew the long lineage of people that would end with me. And he knew specifically that I, because of the choices I made, because of the life experiences I have, I'm going to choose to not believe in Islam anymore, which condemns me to hell. How could, and so I think the unspoken question here is, how could God be loving? How could God care about us if he's willing to create us knowing that we are going to suffer in all of these unimaginable ways that he threatens us with? So, what do you think Muhammad would say to this question?
You would likely pin it on human free will because his entire shtick is basically on trying to control human beings because he believes that they have an agenda. He believed that they had an agenda against him. Otherwise, why else would he control them? And I think, and I want to. You mind if I just expand on this a little bit because I
Yeah,
have
please
like a
go
bit
ahead.
to say. I'm a determinist. So what that means is, obviously, you might know what that means. It basically, I believe everything that takes course now, in a sense, was kind of like planned beforehand, right? So in a deterministic universe, in a deterministic planet, deterministic ecosystem, free will is non-existent. Free will is a fairy tale, conjoned up by human beings who are chasing the beauty of having control over their own lives. And I believe this is the same thing that Muhammad was also struggling with, because, like any other ordinary human, having accountability is kind of like like safe. It's secure, because you know you don't really have anyone else to blame at that point. You cannot ever feel like someone else is responsible for the things that you have happening in your life. Obviously, Muhammad took advantage of this, and like every other religion, he made up rudimentary concepts such as eternal punishment and eternal reward, right? But this was only a testament to the same fear I just mentioned a few seconds ago, and also because you wanted to control the people by appealing to not only their most innate desires, but also what they feared the most, right? So I think, I think the idea of hell. immediately just discounts God like entirely. I don't care how logically cohesive this is, the religion may be. Hell and heaven is just ridiculous, right? I don't think that cosmic reward is necessary for finite human action. Neither do I believe that its cosmic damnation would also be a justified punishment, justified ordainment for a human being committing such a finite evil. I think that, like, here's my opinion, and not even an opinion, just a basic fact, really. If you are an engineer and you create people with certain conditions and place them in certain life stories, you write everything down that happens to them in their life, what kind of ethnicity they have, how old they are, what gender they're born as, what what life they live, where they live. If you ordain all of those conditions, knowing what they would turn out to be, you've made them that way on purpose with intent, and you cannot blame the human for simply acting out the code you executed without their permission. That obviously just completely dismantles the idea of hell and heaven. Because not only can I use that logic to dismantle and exonerate people from hell, I can use that logic to then say, why should I reward that person when they had no choice over what
Mhm.
they did?
When they're
You've
just
placed
following
them
that code, as you were saying.
exactly. So there's no point in rewarding them for the good things they do, and there's no point in punishing them for the bad things they do. It's a ridiculous and childish concept. So I
Mhm.
just think no matter how logically cohesive a religion may appear, if it has anything to do with eternal damnation or eternal reward, I just think it's foolish.
Mhm. I have a question to ask you here because I
Go ahead.
agree with a lot of what you just said.
Mhm.
What would you say to, so maybe we're looking at this in terms of too crude a mindset, in terms of, and a lot of Muslims believe this. So this crude, simplistic version of you'll go to hell, you'll suffer for eternity, blah 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 blah. But the reality is that there's other Muslims, and I'm talking about, let's say, Sufi Muslims, or I think Ahmadi Muslims as well, who don't see hell in such a literal way. So they might say, some of these Muslims might say, well, hell isn't, when you see hell being described that way in the Quran, this is metaphorical, lyrical language. And what hell really is just this state of being separated from God. It's this anguish of the soul being separated from its creator. And it's not a literal place where I'm going to go and then just experience horrendous pain the way I would if I was being tortured here on earth. Do you think that Muhammad might be receptive to that kind of interpretation of Islam?
No, because that wouldn't be enough to control people. Like, we both know punishment is a powerful motivator. And I don't, and for people who don't actually know what this God is, but people who aren't Muslim yet, they're not really going to be terrified of something they're kind of already separated from, right? They need like a
Mhm.
more, you know, anguish, more painful motivator to, obviously get them to do what Muhammad wanted.
Mm. Well
Does that
said.
like make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, well said.
Thank
Uh,
you.
is there anything else you'd want to say about this, or shall we move on
Yeah,
to the next
I want to
question?
also say that I just want to also tell the people in the chat, like, and this is something I honestly feel, and I will also delve into this as we answer more questions. This I want to understand. I want everyone to understand that when you are in a household where you are a Muslim household, where you're being told about hell and heaven, you have to understand that your parents and the people who tell you about this, they are not trying to harm you. They themselves are just as scared as you are, right? Like, you have to understand, and I want everyone to like understand this. I know I may come across as a bit crude, judging by the language I've used, but I'm trying to be a bit sympathetic here. It is not your parents or your friends or your family's fault that you are scared of hell. They had, with the lives that they've led, being raised in the same religion that was carrying on the same disease, they were unfortunate yet inevitable outcomes of then birthing you and giving you that same fear. We can all just say now, And I'm going to congratulate not only Mr. Secular Spirit, but Apostle Latin, Haram Doodles, Infidel Noodle. I want to congratulate everyone here for slowly deconstructing and for leaving that pool of fear or getting out of there. Because even though it will be hard, I myself still struggle with it sometimes. Now that we're ending a cycle that has lasted for years, and we have to be very proud of ourselves for accomplishing something like this. So I just want to make that clear for everybody here.
Yeah, I
Well done.
think just even coming on to channels like this, just to watch if you're a questioning Muslim, like Ashley in the live chat said they were, I think that's a brave step to take because you really are then opening the door to dismantling everything that you thought was true in life, and that's not easy. And sometimes it takes an entire lifetime to process that transition, that journey.
We have to be very gracious with ourselves. As a wise person has once told me, with grace becomes brilliance.
Mhm.
Right, the next question.
Next question. So for this next question, I think we need to jump a little bit more into the future. And let's say this is now Muhammad has established the beginning of what would become the Muslim empire in Mecca. He's defeated his enemies from Quraysh, and he's beginning his expansion in Arabia. And so people are dying. People are dying in wars, and even after Muhammad's death, this process of violent expansion continues going into, you know, going into Persia, Africa, Spain, Europe, India eventually. So, question for you, Muhammad: why did you kill so many people in order to spread Islam? Or we can
Nabi
tweak it
Muhammad.
slightly to say, why were you okay with so many people dying in order to spread
Nabi
Islam?
Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why did he kill so many people in order to spread Islam? So let's take a more historical analytical approach here. I'm going to appeal not only to Islam but to every other religion and every other theology. Wars happen when disagreements that can easily be solved aren't as easy to solve with the people involved. I'm of the very strong opinion, I'm sure you'd agree, war never solves anything. It only just continues the disagreement that the people had beforehand. It is only that we've grown now to be gracious and intelligent that we've finally decided that maybe things need a little bit of a change. Now, with every religion, when you're obviously when you're starting up a when you're building an ideology from a truth claim, you are practically guaranteed to have opposition. And when it's something that's so meaningful to you, because you are in a very deprived and resource scarce area, you will resort to awful things to get your point across, to defeat your opposition. For Muhammad and for many others, it was murder, sex slavery, torture, stuff like that. Why he killed so many people to spread Islam? Because Muhammad, like every other human being that had started this, he was scared. He was frightened out of his mind that people would destroy the structure of Islam that he was coming up to building. He was scared, and he was also a seventh century man. And seventh century, and I don't know if you guys know this, but when you're living around 1400 years ago from now, the new era where everything is suddenly changing, you aren't going to be as morally, cohesive within your social dynamics. You're not going to be as well versed in terms of what the best decisions are to make, because obviously humanity is still kind of rising towards its prime, and back in Muhammad's time, it was a bit far from that. He was not only scared, he was unequipped. He was unequipped, not in obviously not in like material wealth, but in mind and in spirit. He was he lacked that sympathy. He lacked reasoning. He lacked reconciliation. He lacked the capacity to negotiate. He wanted things to go his way and his way only. And if he wasn't going to have that, he would resort to do horrible, horrible things just to get his point across. And you'll see this trend throughout every single historical anecdote, whether it be an anecdote, whether it be a book, or whether it be a citation of a source that discusses something very important. You'll see that they all wars, battles, conflicts, they all follow the same trend. People do not want to negotiate. Scared human beings do not want to negotiate. And that's where trauma, that's where evil, and that's where reprehensibility starts to take root. So, to answer this question again for the third time now, it is fear, it is unpreparedness, and it is uneducation. Those three caused his atrocities.
You know, the interesting thing there is you'll actually hear a variation of this argument that you just made from Muslims as a justification or a defense of Muhammad. What they'll say is, well, you have to look at what the reality of the world was at the time. Much more violent world where violence was more commonplace in people's day-to-day lives than it is now for many of us who are fortunate enough to not live surrounded by violence. And so there was nothing particularly evil or malevolent or vicious about what Muhammad was doing. And this is used, for example, to excuse what happened with, the killing of entire Jewish tribes, which is like a whole long story I talked about in Islam's history that I talk about in another video. I don't want to get into that here, but the idea is that, well, Muhammad wasn't doing anything cruel by putting all the men to death in those Jewish tribes early on in Islam's history. That this was normal. This was following the Jewish law on what's supposed to happen. And so what I would say to that is that doesn't square up with the Islam that I was taught, and that I'm sure you were taught too, the Islam of peace, and the Islam that's supposed to rise above and transcend the evils of men, that it's supposed to be something different, something
You
that
know,
changes the world. And yet when you look at this history, it's exactly the same. And to add to what you said, is there really a difference between what ended up happening with Islam's early history, what Muhammad and his successors did, and warlords of other backgrounds and other parts of the world? I would say not really.
neither would I, yeah. And I want to add on to what you said earlier because that's something I actually discussed with a friend. Whenever I see a Muslim woman, I feel sad. When I see a woman wearing a hijab, I feel sad. And I ask myself the same question. Do you know where that idea came from? Do you know what your prophet did? Do you know what your religion stands for? You talk to them, and I'm telling you this right now, and this is a stark trend. They don't even read their own book. They believe it's a book that is peaceful and that has wisdom.
That
And then
is
you read
perfect.
perfect,
Perfect.
linguistic miracle is what they'll say. And then you read verses about child like wife beating, domestic violence. You read verses talking about marrying pubescent girls and marrying orphans. You'll hear verses that are like gotta be honest, so scientifically literate. You will hear verses that call women and children fools, and you look at them and you ask them, "Are you sick?" Not obviously joking, but in reality, like you ask them, are you okay? Are you all right? Like out of concern, because you read verses like this, and you look back at them and you think, do you not know this? Is this what you stand for? And some of them you meet, I swear to God, some of the nicest people in the world. I'll give my mom as an example. My mom is a lovely woman. I'm telling you right now, she is kind to everybody. Okay, but the woman, she doesn't even believe like in the things that Islam actually teaches. She told me to her face that Islam is like the Quran is peaceful. But when you read verses talking about the things I mentioned earlier, And when I even asked her about why she believes in Islam, it's the same generic argument that is unfalsifiable. And look at my mom, and I think I feel so sorry. Like,
Mhm.
this religion doesn't favor you. If anything, it puts you in the worst position possible, right? And another thing I want to add on here, I was thinking about this, and I discussed this with a friend earlier today, and I realized, and I actually told her, Muslims of nowadays often believe in a very pink-washed version of Islam, very very pink-washed. And you'll notice when you talk with them, they don't even know what the hell they're talking about. They just hear generic arguments from apologists who are so trained with rhetoric, but not as trained with logic and reasoning. And they apply that to their own religion simply because they're too scared to leave. It's not even just about hell, but the fact they don't want to lose their family,
Yeah,
they don't want to lose their
yeah,
friends.
yeah, it's true.
Religion is what keeps them all tied together, and without that, they lose everyone they love. And another more important thing is religion is heavily tied with identity. You'll see with scholars, for example, Mufti Menk, not even a scholar, he's a preacher, Mufti Menk, Omar Suleiman, Noman Ali Khan, you'll see them talk about Islam, and you'll read Mufti Menk's very pink-washed version of the Quran that's missing 28 surahs. And you'll see they're not doing this they're not doing this unintentionally. They need this religion because without Islam, they don't have a sense of identity. So I empathize with Muslims. No, not even empathize, sympathize. And I say, I hear you and I struggle with your problem, but this is not the solution. By all means, if they want to practice a pink washed version of Islam that doesn't harm anyone, then by all means you can do that. As long as they are healthy and that everyone else is healthy around them. But if they're believing in the Islam that me and you know, then I believe that's a problem. It needs to be addressed, and they need to be educated, and they need to be safely helped, whether it be via apostasy, whether it be by practicing a new religion, a branch of Islam that still satisfies their lack of purpose, their lack of meaning, or their fear, but also doesn't harm anyone else around them.
That's a tough ask. I've always wondered. This is a bit of a side tangent, so I'm just going to talk about it quickly
Go
before we
ahead.
move on to the next question. But always makes me think of the people who say, "I don't care what you believe as long as it's harmless." I agree with that. The thing is, I think even the most reduced, stripped down version of Islam, where it's literally just there's a God that loves me and that has a plan for me, has problems that harm people. Do you know what I mean? Where you might, some of you watching might think, well, what could the harm be there? It could be many things. It could be people changing their life decisions, their choices based on this belief that there's this God that has a plan for them. So they might end up doing things that they wouldn't have done that harm them, or so on and so forth. They might look at people who say suffer in this life, and they think, oh well, it's all okay because God loves us and this is all part of his cosmic plan, instead of perhaps doing something to help them, uh, to help ease their suffering. I'm just naming two examples here, but there's so many different kinds of ways where even like that stripped down, seemingly benign version of Islam, and not just Islam, Christianity too, and a lot of organized religion can be harmful to people. So just wanted to
Exactly.
say that before we move on to the next question. I
Can
do.
I highlight another comment just one more
Yeah, yeah,
time?
yeah, yeah. Which one?
This comment where it says by Groge Gorge, same dude. One might assume lungs exist for flu because humans so commonly develop it. Pascal Boyer argues religion works similarly, not the purpose of the brain, but the byproduct of evolved cognitive functions. That is a beautiful way to put it. And I'll expand on this just a little bit, not too much, so we can move on to the next question. I studied cognitive science formally for 2 years, and I wrote so many papers, and I got like the highest grade for it. I was awarded really high for that because I did so much research. And what I understand from this is that the brain evolves not just physically, but it behaves as if there's an inner spirit that it must satisfy. And usually like cognitive scientists, neuroscientists, people who understand the human brain to some degree, often argue that this is reflected within our desires. So for example, for things like sex, intimacy, food, in attention. Those things are the brain physically alters itself and evolves because it satisfies that inner spirit that demands it for all of these things. And religion works the same way. Religion deals with meaning, purpose in life, um, deals with the questions that we don't really have an answer to, that we have to give ourselves an answer to. So you're right, and Pascal Boyer was exactly hit the nail on the head. As we evolve, we'll want more. Our spirits will grow more demanding, and as a result, the brain will just develop more desires, and we'll have to resort to so many more things to keep up with our, new changed selves. Hope that makes sense to all of you. Next question, please. Yep.
Yeah, it makes sense to me as well. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah,
Thank you.
there's no end. Like there's always going to be more and more needed. I did want to highlight this super chat from secular jihadists as well.
Oh
Yeah.
yes.
So secular jihadists, we're going to answer. This is going to be one of our questions for Muhammad. So we're going to get to it in a little bit. But the question is, what do you say to people who try to say Aisha was 16 to 21 and that 9-year-old Aisha is a lie? So we're going to get to that very shortly.
I just want to say before that, I have a very extensive answer for that question, and I don't think there's any other way but to accept my answer. I know it sounds a bit, you know, like pompous, but deal with it. That's the next question. Next question.
Okay. Next question. Question 4 for you, Muhammad. So we are travelers from your future,
Yep.
and you may very well be pleased to know that there's 2 billion Muslims now in the world, thanks to your efforts. But hold on, you should also know that the reality that of our current world is that some Muslims will actually kill people simply because they drew an image of you, sometimes insulting images, but yeah, just for drawing images of you. What do you think of that, Muhammad?
I don't think he would care. I mean, how do I phrase this? I think that if we're just talking about people drawing images of him, I don't think he'd take offense to it. If it were insulting images, maybe he might be. I mean, considering he has a clearly has a very big ego, he'd probably be really insulted. But I don't think he'd be insulted by people drawing images of him, as long as. I mean, now that I think about it, he might have an irrational fear that the image doesn't exactly precisely encapsulate his physical appearance. So maybe he might take offense to that, like take offense to the fear that it might not actually represent what he actually physically looks like to a T. I don't know. I feel like I'm on the fence because, for one,
I actually think that he likely wouldn't care.
you think you wouldn't care.
I don't think he would care. I think that just from what I was learning about Islam when I was a Muslim,
Yeah.
Muhammad isn't supposed to be revered like he's a deity himself. I think that comes off explicitly clear that Muhammad is just a man. He isn't divine. He isn't like the Jesus, the Jesus that Christians believe in, and shouldn't be venerated as such. And so to then learn that Muslims are become so frenzied by the depiction of him as a drawing, as a cartoon or whatever, even if it's an insulting cartoon, I think it might flabbergast him, to use to use a word I don't normally use in day to day.
I don't even think you'd know what a cartoon is.
Perhaps, or I don't know. Maybe if you just showed him a drawing in the dirt or something, he'd get it or whatever.
He'd probably say, "Oh, the below. What is this?"
But
But
yeah, I'm very open to the possibility that Muhammad would be shocked and dismayed.
I mean, I'm torn because on one hand, I don't think you would care because, well, art back then wasn't that popular, especially considering that he kind of legalized that.
When he destroyed all the
He,
statues
he
and
started the statues. I don't think he'd really care. But then again, now that I think about it, I think he might actually care at the same time because, well,
it's bad
obviously
PR, I suppose, in one way.
bad PR, but you obviously know that in Islam, drawing is haram. Like art, like for especially drawing eyes. There's a hadith that says Allah will take the artists and make them create an eye for the because apparently it's offensive to draw an eye because only Allah can create eyes. I don't see the logic.
I actually didn't know that. Oh, it's the
It
first
is
time I'm
true. It
hearing
is
that.
true. It's a
Oh wow.
hadith. Apparently, that Allah will take all the artists, and He will, you know, like their punishment in the Yom Al Qiyamah will be to try and create an eye, because in the afterlife they could behave in the dunya they behaved as if they could create eyes by drawing eyes. That was a very weird hadith. I couldn't get my head around it. I don't know why Allah takes so much offense to that.
Mhm.
But anyway, like I was saying before, I don't think he would. I don't think he'd actually like it at the same time, because my hypothesis is that he might actually develop an irrational fear, because it doesn't like perfectly encapsulate. Like he may look at it and think, "Oh, my nose is a little bit weird. My eye is like all the way up there. My face isn't like shaped exactly as my actual face." He might actually feel a little bit like, have an irrational fear because of it. Because, oh shit, hello there, Mikhail. Sorry, my cat just jumped on my desk. Like I
No
was
worries.
saying, sorry. Get- okay, one sec. All right, there we go. So he's rubbing his head on my microphone. But anyway, yeah. So I think he might develop an irrational fear that it might not perfectly encapsulate him. It might not actually like look like him, and therefore he would take offense. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, yeah, I'm open to it. I think that one I'm very inconclusive though. I could see him following that path that you said of taking it very personally and being kind of self-conscious about it and maybe angry. And then I could also see him being angered that Muslims are taking it that far. Uh, as much as he
Uh,
might be excited to know that there's 2 billion Muslims right now.
the I think he's a moderator. He says yes, eye drawing is allowed. I just read a hadith that said that, and I was told in my household that eye drawing is also not allowed. Maybe the hadith might be wrong, or maybe I'm just misremembering, but I know for a fact that I have read something along those lines.
Hmm,
But
gotcha.
yeah, I think we should just move on to the next question.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's go to question 5, and this is where we're going to talk about women's rights, and we're going to lots to talk about here. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So again, we're talking to Muhammad, who's a man from 1400 years ago.
Mm-hmm,
Very different kinds of societies than the ones that
mm-hmm.
exist today. Muhammad, did you intend for Islam to be misogynistic and to treat women like second class citizens?
Oh, absolutely, I did.
Well, Muhammad might actually just say, "What is misogyny? Like, what do you mean by that?"
We'd have to convert. Okay, we'd say, well, let's ask it like this: did
Hmm.
you intend for Islam to cause bad things to happen to women? Maybe he might be able to understand that, and I think he did. I don't think.
And tied to that, and for men to be in charge of women, that definitely is a yes, because that's just the
Yeah.
way society worked then, and that is the ideal for Muslim societies today.
Could you pull up chapter 4, verse 5?
Chapter 4, verse 5. Give me a second. Okay.
Yeah. So could you highlight the third word?
In
No,
trust.
no, 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 no. The in the Arabic.
Okay.
This word as-sufaha.
السفهاء.
Yeah. So this word is in the Arabic. You speak Arabic, right?
Yeah.
So this word means foolish, ignorant people who are like not sound in mind, not sound in judgment. And in this verse, it this you see why I said this translation is shit. Mustafa Khattab, he
Yeah, we
says
were
among
talking
your
about that off
yeah
air. Yeah.
before you're off air, yeah, among your dependents. It's not dependents. It's women and I mean yeah, they're technically dependents, but this is not to refer to men as well. This is referring to strictly women and children, right? So this verse here, Allah, not even Allah, Muhammad is basically calling the people that men are entrusted with foolish, literally foolish and ignorant, and women too. And he's equating the irrationality of a child to the judgment of a woman.
And if you look at the other translation from Sahih International, it's "Do not give the weak-minded your property." So that's including
So
women.
pinkwashed, so pinkwashed.
Again, and here, this one is give not unto the
At
foolish
least
your
this one
property.
is more honest. At least this
Yeah.
one is more honest. Yeah, fine. But yeah, that's just that to me, that behavior there, it just doesn't ring bells of someone who doesn't have hatred towards women.
Well,
Like in
let's go to the famous one that I think a lot of people would be more familiar
yeah,
with.
434.
So let's.
Yeah,
I'm going to just read again the clear Quran translation, the relevant part of it. So
yeah,
it starts with men are the caretakers of women. So this one has also been changed. So Sahih International just says men are in charge of women. Um, as men have been provisioned by Allah over women and tasked with supporting them financially, and righteous women are devoutly obedient and when alone protective of what Allah has trusted them with. And if you sense ill conduct from your women, so this is talking to the men, advise them first. If they persist, do not share their beds. But if they still persist, then discipline them gently.
yeah,
So discipline them gently. So if you look at the word in Arabic, let me find it. Where
yeah.
is it?
It's right there. Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Yadribunna.
if you look at it, on the Quran.com website itself, the word is strike them, the individual word.
Yeah,
And as you'll see from Sahih International, strike them, but they've added between brackets
yeah.
lightly.
Between I want to. Yeah, you know this. Whenever they add brackets, it's usually something that isn't included in the Quranic text, because as you know, when you're translating a perfect book, you must add words to it, right?
Yeah, to clarify. Yeah.
Yeah, just to
Because
clarify.
because of
Perfect
the
book. Yeah,
limited human capability
I,
of understanding the
yeah.
amazing words of God.
Yeah,
So even
Allah
this
Rahim.
this one that was this translation down here seemed a bit more accurate. Says beat
No, 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 no,
them.
no. I'd say Al Maududi is more accurate.
No, but I'm just saying the one that we saw that was more accurate than the
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
previous one.
Okay.
Beat them
Yes.
lightly if it is useful, which brings up so
Oh,
many questions. Like so sometimes
interesting.
beating your wife can sometimes be useful. Apparently,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of scenarios where it would not be useful to beat your wife lightly, and then somewhere it would be useful.
Um, I don't
I can't
think
even
unless
imagine. I don't even understand what
I
that
mean
means.
unless if she's like a physical detriment to your life, like she's actually trying to kill you. I guess then you can use physical force to get her away from you, but I don't think beating the shit out of her would like
Well, that's
also
why you're
just
beating them lightly. So,
ah,
so
okay.
one thing I've heard is, and this is from Muslim
Uh,
apologists. I can't specify a name, but it's the idea of where it's just like like a tap on the hand
yeah,
or something along those lines.
my mom and aunt said take an abaya and just like lightly brush their head with it.
Wow.
But yeah, look at Al Maududi. Al Maud, I think what's his name? Al Maududi. Yeah, it says
Here it is. Okay.
yeah. See, it says it's more accurate one here. It says eh, be, remain apart from them in beds and then beat them.
Actually uses the word beat, not
And
even
then yeah, and look at the
strike.
other verse. Look at the other verse. It says, "Then if they obey you, do not seek ways to harm them.
Because
Then if they obey you, do not
your
seek
work
ways to
is
harm them.
your work is done.
Your work is done, basically." Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
A'udhu billah. But
I did want to also highlight a few lesser known ones just to kind of show how there's I guess this negative perception of women. So I know you shared one with me, but just for the sake of brevity, I'm going to highlight the one I initially
mhm.
picked out. So hold on, let me pull it out here. Okay, I'm going to share this tab instead. So
Yep.
this one, so I'm going to read it out loud for anyone who's just listening. So this one says, they ask you, O Prophet, about menstruation. Say, beware of its harm, so keep away and do not have intercourse with your wives during their monthly cycles until they are purified. And this is a correct translation, purified. When they purify themselves, then you may approach them in the manner specified by Allah. So maybe some Muslims are going to hear this, and I'm going to include myself when I was a Muslim. Okay, well, what's the big deal? There's the same kind of thing is talked about with men. If there's urine or semen on your body, you're supposed to clean yourself so that you can be purified. So how is this some kind of double standard or like kind of misogyny to talk about menstruation in this way. And do you have anything you want to share about that? Because I have some stuff to
Yeah,
say.
I just think it's idiotic to consider. I mean, semen. How do I say this? Semen can spread diseases, but like if you have, for example, like a drop of semen on your hand or like a drop of urine on your hand, it's not doing anything to you. If you have it on your clothes, it's harmless. Like as long as with semen, it's a bit of a different thing because if you touch someone else's semen, you're not going to get sick. But if you do touch someone else's urine, and you keep it on your hands, especially if it's like cat urine, for example, you might get sick, right? But with urine, but I mean, with semen, probably not. I mean, semen can only cause like sexually transmitted diseases. So, unless if you ingest it, unless if it's like inside your like in your genitals, it's not really going to pose any harm to you. Especially if the person doesn't have any sexual diseases, like transmitted diseases. So I don't think that. So I just think it's idiotic. And also another thing is that I think it's very very awful to separate women from you, from reading the Quran, from praying to you, just because they're experiencing a monthly cycle that you put them through. They
You
have no
put them through,
control
you
over.
created them to have, and that is also deeply connected with what is the most important task that they do according to Islam, which is have children.
Exactly.
And I think the thing that inevitably happens is you're almost taught to be embarrassed and ashamed of something that is completely natural and that God made you do. Like that God made it this way. And I think that that does considerable damage. I think even to men with like the stigma against, oh, semen is dirty as well. I think it does create a stigma for men too, a shame thing with men too. But for women, when it's something that's just such a regular part of their lives, something that I would say actually should be treated with some kind of privilege because it's connected to childbirth. Instead, it's something that's stigmatized and shamed. You have to be
Yeah.
separated. You have to be isolated. You're unclean. You are not purified.
Especially like me, um, I've never done this, but I always used to have this irrational fear, and I still kind of do. I deal with OCD, right? So, and I usually do, and with this, I develop irrational fears, and I have intrusive thoughts and whatnot, right? This is linked to the topic. So, sometimes when I wake up, I used to fear that I might have gotten something impure in my hands, whether it be my urine or my semen, even though I literally have no recollection of doing any of those things, right? But I just used to have the fear that I did. So I used to always like wash my hands, wash my face, take a shower. I wouldn't touch anything. I wouldn't help anyone with anything until I knew I was clean and safe. And it wasn't until I actually like did some research and I had to calm myself down and think, there is no proof. It's okay to deal with uncertainty, and you are not impure just because you have your own semen on your hands. You're not impure, you're not dirty. Just wash your hands. You're still the same person with or without it. And that's the same thing I want to tell everyone else. It's okay, and this is another thing I want to link with. It's okay to have sexual desire. It's okay to desire a man or desire a woman. You shouldn't be shamed for that. It's okay to have, you know, to feel, sexual impulses. It's okay to of course it's okay to menstruate. You can't control it, but it's okay to, be around people. Of course, clean yourself up, so you don't spread anything, but you're not dirty just because you menstruate.
This is the problem where when you start talking about language like purity, purify,
Yeah.
keep away, beware of its harm. It actually says beware of its harm. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it literally does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it causes so much damage. Yeah. um, I think there's a lot more to talk about with women, and I think we should do it with through the next question.
Also, I want to say hi to something cool. He knows me or she knows me. So good evening to you.
Hi, someone cool.
Um,
Yeah, I see them too. Yeah.
yeah, but as I was saying, yeah, it is okay. You are not dirty for menstruating. You are not dirty for ejaculating. You're
Yeah,
not dirty for urinating on
you are
yourself.
not.
You're
Yeah.
just a human being who is naturally executing healthy bodily functions. There's nothing dirty or impure or disgusting about that.
Yeah.
And I do not like that religion teaches this.
Yes.
Right then.
And now we're going to go to
Question
the
6.
big question that
Oh,
secular
yeah.
jihadist was referring to.
Yes, yes.
So
Do you mind if I
Muhammad,
just take this entirely? Can I
go
just
ahead.
answer the whole thing entirely? Because I have a lot of things to say. So,
Let me read the
first of
question
all,
out first. Just
oh
give me a
yes, please
second.
go ahead.
So Muhammad, how old was Aisha when you married her? Was she 6? Was she 9? Was she 18? Was she 21? How old was she?
Well, I'd say that number one, the hadith that the hadith that sorry, the hadith that discusses. Sorry, I'm really trying not to to hear. Like, do you hear them?
Oh yeah, but it's okay.
I don't like that she's so close. Sorry about that. Anyway, the hadith that discusses that, Sahih Bukhari, that discusses Aisha's marriage. This
I pulled it
hadith,
up on screen, by the way.
yeah, this hadith is literally the most authentic hadith. Like there, it does not get more truthful than Sahih Bukhari. It really doesn't get like Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim. They're authentic hadiths, and also, if you read the verses of the Quran, whoever wrote the Quran is clearly okay with child sex, having sex with children. Even, even Muhammad, when he was asked what of the prepubescent, when 65:4 was revealed, the Sahaba asked him, "What about the prepubescent children?" He said the same rule applies to them. Clearly, whoever this person wrote the Quran, they're okay with having children. They're okay with having sex with children. And the Sahih Bukhari himself, the Sahih Bukhari itself. I'll ask a question after this. The Sahih Bukhari itself is one of the most authentic, if not the most authentic hadith in the world. Anything you read here is true, is an accurate description. Am I wrong? Am
You're
I
not,
wrong?
you're
Exa-
not wrong. No.
Exactly. And I'll even ask you a question. So, and I want to tell this to you. I don't know if you know this, secular spirit, but usually, like Muslim apologists, when trying to defend Aisha's marriage, they'll usually say things like, "Oh, but she had a sister called Asma who was this age, and then she died at this age, and therefore, if you do all this like crazy math, you can actually find her out to be 21 years old." So the actual hadith that cites that. That Asma was however old she was when Aisha was born is a very weak hadith. And also Asma is not really mentioned in the Islamic literature at all, rarely mentioned. I've read almost every single hadith and I rarely see anything that talks about Asma. I only see like a couple of verses which I don't even fucking remember.
That
Like,
is an obscure one. The ones I've heard more commonly spoken is uh, that hadith is just inaccurate. So
it's
just
really not.
for people who don't know, what the hadith says is that the Prophet, and it's narrated by Aisha herself. So the Prophet married her when she was 6 years old, and he consummated the marriage when she was 9 years old. So some Muslims will say, "Oh yeah, that's not a correct hadith," or some will say, I've heard this one. I don't know if you've heard this one, that when people say the age 9 or the age
Oh, they're
6,
counting after puberty.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's ridiculous
Or
because
some
that would.
variation of that. So 6 actually means 16, not 9 means 19 or whatever.
Well, still, a 53-year-old man having intercourse with a 16-year-old isn't any better.
Well, to answer the question of what Muhammad would say, he may very well say, yeah, she was 6 years old. It was for political alliance, and yeah, it was consummated at 9 because, well, what's the big deal? That's just what's done. That's normal. I think
Yeah,
that's the honest answer. He wouldn't,
he'd also,
like many men from that era, he wouldn't see the big deal. Well, what's the big deal?
and he'd also say that, oh, Allah promised me her. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to also say, um, that thing you mentioned earlier about counting after puberty is idiotic because if that were the case, then Prophet Muhammad died at 72, not 63.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
like, counting after puberty would mean everyone would have to go that way, and obviously, again, it's just ridiculous. Counting after puberty doesn't apply to anyone else. So we have so many records of people dying at ages. We have Ibn Abbas dying at 80. We have other people. Ibn Abbas. So I just want to quickly check myself. Yep, he died when he was around seven, like 66, I believe. Yep, 66 years old. Not 80. My apologies for the misremembrance. But yeah, he died when he was 66. Does that mean he also died when he was what, 74, 75?
74, 70, or older. Yeah.
The
This,
problem with that line of reasoning is that it's obviously, like, number one, it's unsubstantiated. Number two, they don't. Number two, it's just clearly an apologetic defense for something that's obviously wrong.
yeah.
And number three, it doesn't even save the argument. A 53-year-old man having intercourse with an 18 or a 17 or a 16 or a 19-year-old is still wrong. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not any. I mean, sure. I guess I'm glad it wasn't like 6 years old, if that's true. Granting it's true, I'm glad it wasn't 9 years old, but 19-year-old isn't any better. So
Not much better, no. And
not
you
really
know
much better. Yeah.
what Muhammad, to go back to the point of Muhammad would say, what's the big deal? I think what Muslims today, when defending this, might say is, and I've heard them say this actually, is you have to look at the context of the time. It was a different time, and you shouldn't be holding Muhammad by the standards of today. But what I would say to that is, Islam and Muhammad specifically, they're presented as, these benchmarks that we're supposed to follow, to uphold, that we're supposed to emulate the example of Muhammad and Islam, and that Islam is for all times and all places. I'm sure you heard this many
Yep.
times.
Yep.
So why is there this exception and we're going to get into this with the slavery question that's coming up soon. Why is there this different standard when it comes to child marriage? What exactly changed? So, Islam is not supposed to be changeable when it comes to these things, especially with what Muhammad is supposed to have done, and him being this paragon of virtue. So I think it doesn't hold there. The reality simply is that I think if you're being an honest Muslim, and you're not one of those, Quranists, the Muslims who only follow what's in the Quran, and if you did that, a lot of what Islam is wouldn't make sense. It would just be, non-existent.
You wouldn't even follow tafsir. So
Yeah, you would have to accept that Muhammad did this, and that's just the way it is. And then, of course, when even if you would never do that yourself, and you wouldn't marry off your 9-year-old daughter just because she happened to hit puberty at that age, you would have to accept that it's totally valid for some Muslims to see this and deem it to be acceptable, and to marry off 80-year-old men, 70-year-old men to 9-year-old girls, which does happen in countries across the
Iraq
Muslim world.
just recently, like, raised its age of consent to 9, right?
Did they? Wow.
Yeah, I think I
Progress
remember.
comes slowly sometimes.
A'udhu billah. But yeah,
Yeah.
but I want to add something on, and this is a common point of contention that I hear with, I mean this with love, idiotic Muslims argue, which is, oh, but all these people in their societies, they also marry children. So why are you attacking our prophet?
But
And I told
again,
them, yeah,
Muhammad is supposed to, sorry to interrupt
and
you, but
yeah,
Muhammad is
yeah,
supposed to
yeah.
be special. It's supposed to be different, a different
And I'm going
standard.
to tell you this, and I told them this, and I didn't repeat myself again. I can acquit every single human being of that charge simply because they did not know it was wrong. Because I know that pedophilia is not like it's a cultural belief. It can actually be a cultural belief. You can teach pedophilia. You can. You can endorse pedophilia in your culture. You can get people to practice it. It isn't something that you can't. It isn't something you can't force someone to do. You can. You can endorse pedophilia and actually get people to practice pedophilia in that culture. I'm not, and I know I'm not wrong for saying this. And you'll see this pattern in all societies. And I can say comfortably, I can acquit them of all the charges because they're simply victims of the environment that they were put up in to do these awful things. But I cannot acquit the supposed messenger of the creator and the engineer of the universe. I cannot. Because if he truly were to receive that revelation, the most intelligent being, supposedly, the engineer of everything that exists and lives and breathes, would have informed him that pedophilia is wrong. He would have informed them that 9-year-olds are too young to be involved in romantic relationships. He would have informed them that pedophilia is morally reprehensible. But since we clearly see that isn't the case, it's just a cause of concern whether or not Islam is actually true or not. And I can say this comfortably, and I'm sure you'd agree. Right then, next question.
Yeah. All right, next question. All right. Question number 7 for you, Muhammad. Why didn't you ban slavery?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
So,
Interesting.
you know, this is one thing. When I was Muslim, I grew up in a Muslim country. I literally studied Islam. I had a class called Islamic education in my school with a curriculum that was mandated by the government of the United Arab Emirates, where I grew up. Did not know that there were slaves in Islam, in the early history of Islam, and you know, through much of the Islamic empire's history. Did not know that, was not mentioned once. And I read the Quran and didn't realize that slavery is actually mentioned. I just didn't know that it was mentioned. And do you know the reason why? I'm going to pull a verse to show you.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to
Also,
start.
I want to, just while you're pulling up the verse, I want to say to the chat, hope you guys are doing okay. And I also hope that my annoying family didn't annoy you guys too much. Probably my cat again. Anyway, go ahead.
Cat rubbing up against the microphone again. Yeah.
He's asleep upside down now, so I think he'll be okay.
We're safe for now. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start this reading from the beginning of Surah Al-Mu'minun. So, successful indeed are the believers, those who humble themselves in prayer, those who avoid idle talk, those who pay alms tax, those who guard their chastity. Okay, it gets a bit more interesting here. Except with their wives or those bond women in their possession for when they are free from blame. Okay, what is a bondwoman? So this is why I did not pick up that slaves, and I'm going to specify sex slaves, are mentioned in the Quran, because the word slave is not actually mentioned in the Arabic. So abid or abid is not in this verse in Arabic. The correct translation is the one you see here: those their right hands possess. So as a kid, not knowing the context of this, as a young Muslim, I did not know what that meant. I just figured, oh, that means things they own. I don't know. I actually can't fully remember what I thought of that, what that meant. I probably
why would they have sex with their personal belongings?
I don't know. Yeah, right. So I just didn't understand what it meant, and I just kind of moved on. I didn't ask any questions about it. So
okay.
The correct translation, the right hand possesses, it is referring, as we can see here from these translations, the slaves. What your right hand possesses refers to your slaves. So this term, right hand possesses, you will find it peppered throughout the Quran. It is a normal part of Islamic society. So when I did do my research, this was after I left Islam, when I did my research into this, when I discovered, oh, there are slaves, this wasn't one of the reasons why I left Islam. I didn't know about this whole sex slave thing being normal. But when I did my research, the explanation from Muslims is kind of connected to what we were talking about earlier with the different standards for women and marrying children back then. The Muslim apologist argument is you have to look at the context of when these verses were revealed. It was a completely different society. Let's say you had a war. The Muslim empire, they just had a war, a battle with another tribe, another city. They win the war. What do you do with all the captives? You can't just release them, because then they're going to go and fight you again, and you have to have a way to make sure that they don't continue being your enemies. Well, what do you do with all your prisoners? So you are forced, in this situation where you've won this battle, you're forced to do something with the women, for example. So the best thing to do is to keep them as your bondswomen, or slaves. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts about all this.
I mean, First of all, you're right. The word abd doesn't isn't here, and but and you're right that the right hand possesses. I just want to make something clear. Can we just completely discard Mustafa Qattab? Like just completely discard his translation because
Okay.
he just doesn't know Arabic.
Those bond
Yeah, let's
women
clearly.
in their
He's
profession.
obviously just like a someone who doesn't know Arabic. Al Hilali though and Al Mawdudi clearly know what they're talking about. But like I was saying, I kind of understand if you're in a war and you have all these people.
Yeah. You
You
see
know,
the
what if
word
you do?
captive being used here because this is
See,
specifically
Yusuf,
referencing.
yeah, Yusuf has an idea what he's talking about. Al Mawdudi, Al Halali, Khan, they don't know what they're talking about. But yeah, I have like that's a very good question. I mean, of course, then again, no, actually, no, I'm gonna like just structure this so I don't just blur out random stuff. I'm gonna say that okay, I'm in a war and I won the war and I have all these women and I have all these people, these non-combatants. What do I do with them? Do I kill them? Do I capture them? What do I do with them? Now, I wouldn't say kill them, but at the same time, I also wouldn't say enslave them. But if they're going to be a threat to you, I'd say the best thing you can do is just take them to your town and, ensure that they join your army. The only gracious thing you can do, really. I wouldn't say take advantage of them, but I'd say the only way you could possibly, um, like, ensure your safety is by keeping them with you. Not necessarily like harming them or enslaving them, or like, I'm trying to make this sound like I'm not I promise I'm not a psychopath. Okay, but it's like, I'm trying to say that if you want to garner your safety, I'd say the only best thing you can do with yourself and them is keep them with you, raise them up as a part of your culture, keep them as your people now. Don't kill them, don't harm them, don't take advantage of them. Just keep them with you. Keep feed them, clothe them, give them houses to live in. They live in your hometown now, and you're gonna have to. I mean, of course, they're not gonna be perfect, but at least they're not dying. At least they're not unsafe. At least they're kept somewhere better. I guess not. At least their children have been fed. Do you see what I mean? Like, I feel like that's the only thing you can do. Do you
Yeah.
agree? Do you
Yeah.
disagree?
Yeah. I agree. I agree. The
Um,
Oh,
yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
And I was gonna say as well, Muhammad's escapades with sex slavery is not a novel observation. He was very well known to have had sex slaves, multiple of them. I want to tell you a tale, and Apostle Adin even also spoke about this. You can watch one of his previous live streams. You can even tell this pattern with his behavior because I'll tell you a story. This is to do with the topic, but some people in this live stream might know that Muhammad had 12 wives, right? 12 wives. And one of them was Sauda. She was old and not really as appealing. And Muhammad, she didn't feel satisfied by Muhammad. She thought that she was going to leave him, and he was going to leave her, and that he wouldn't be interested in her anymore. She obviously was scared by this. She was frightened by it. So she decided the best course of action would be to obviously ask, her husband, "Hey, husband, honey, I feel unsatisfied by you. I want to bring you back with me. I'm gonna give you because he used to visit his wives like on rotation. Like one night he'd visit one wife,
Yeah,
the other
that's in the
another wife.
polygamy 101. Yeah, you have to make
Yeah,
sure you're equal and fair. And by the way, I remember being taught that Muhammad was very fair in that way, where he would.
yeah. I don't really know how it's all fair if you're fucking your wives in one entire bath with a little girl in that same bath as all those other women, which is just fucking disgusting. Apologies for all the cussing. Sorry, this is a bit of a weird, annoying topic for me, but I'll be fine. But yeah, like she decided it would be a good idea so that he wouldn't leave her to give up her right, her night with him so that he could stay with his favorite wife. And instead of him rejecting that and satisfying Sauda, yep, he visited only one night, exactly, yeah. Um, he actually let her give up her right, and he took that time to stay with his wife Aisha for another night, leaving Sauda alone. And when I heard this story, I was so disgusted by his behavior. How could the how could the Al Insan Al Kamil do something this heinous? And you'll see the same pattern with tribal leaders, with religious cult leaders. They're all just sexually,
They have a limitless sexual appetite. Yeah.
But yeah, like you'll see the same thing. You'll see the same thing, the same like trending pattern. They all just sexually depraved.
Yeah. So to go to what Muhammad would likely say about this, I think he would say, I didn't ban slavery because it's normal and necessary for society to function. And if we were to tell him, well, did you know that much of the Muslim world has banned, much of the world, beyond even the Muslim world, has banned slavery, and it's seen now as this horrible, terrible thing, maybe he would think, oh, why? What changed? What happened? And maybe the last thing to talk about here is, what did change, what happened, our different understanding of, what should be human rights, human dignity. There might be some Muslims that say, oh, well, you're looking at, this is the classic thing, and you'll hear it from Christian apologists too. What you're talking about as slavery is this, what you're envisioning is this transatlantic slave trade kind of slavery that happened in the US in the 1800s. And that's not what bond people, bond women were. They had more rights, they had more freedoms, they were well treated, they had better lives than they would have if they were, if they weren't being held by Muslims. And the last thing they will say, and you were actually encouraged for freeing slaves, as you see from the example of Muhammad freeing slaves, the famous example being of Bilal. So what would you say to that?
I'd say that I have something very interesting to show the audience. This is what I got from Reddit, but the thing is because this was an old account that I deleted, and this was something that I posted here. It was an old account, and I was like collating verses to ask progressive Islam. Do you mind if I just share my screen and just show you? Yeah. So that this argument can be immediately silenced. Share screen. There we go. Do you see it?
Yes.
So if you just read this, can you guys see if I zoom in?
Yes, I can see it. So go ahead and start reading.
Right. So it says here, Imam Bayhaqi wrote in his book Sunan al-Kubra that whenever Ibn Umar wanted to buy a slave girl, he would inspect her by analyzing her legs and placing his hands between her breasts and on her buttocks. So the Grand Hadith Master Imam Albani declared this tradition to be authentic, which is what I also researched when I was doing my polemic on Sunan al-Kubra, this particular verse. And Munsanaf Abdul Razak recorded this translation to be that if any man has to buy a slave girl, then he can see her whole body except for her vagina. And then lastly, Munsanaf Ibn Abi Shayba discusses that Naf'i reported that when Ibn Umar wanted to buy a slave girl, he would then place his hand on her butt. Same thing before. And then obviously, yeah. And then in collation, same thing. It's like I was walking with Ibn Umar in a slave market, and then we saw some slave dealers gathered around one slave girl, and they were checking her. When they saw Ibn Umar, they stopped and said, Ibn Umar has arrived. And Ibn Umar came close to the slave girl. He touched a part of her body and then said, who is the owner of this slave girl? She's just a commodity. She is just a commodity.
And again, a lot of Muslims will not be familiar with these hadiths.
So, to all the Muslims who believe that it's not the same as slavery, you literally have Ibn Umar, practicing the same thing that was worse than what the Bible was touted out to be as indentured servitude. So,
Yeah.
to that, I say, pooey. Anyway, question
Yeah.
8.
Question 8. I just wanted to also highlight, thank you so much for super chat. I am not your sister. I appreciate that as
I know
always.
you want my sister.
And yeah, I also wanted to tell everyone, if you are enjoying this video, if you're finding it valuable, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. And I think it will be really helpful too once we are off the air, if you can comment on this video too, because that does help with the algorithm in terms of sending it out and getting it recommended to more people to watch. And last thing I'll mention is there is a poll question that you can vote on. The poll question, if I can find it, is
Who would you
simply
visit if you travel? You could time travel into the past.
yes.
Muhammad, Jesus, Buddha, baby Hitler.
Muhammad is winning with a slight advantage over Jesus. Baby Hitler is last because
Yeah.
everyone heard your explanation of why it would be a paradox to try and kill baby Hitler.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very interesting thought experiment. When you get into
Yeah.
the realm of relativistic physics, you'll understand that time is
Yeah.
kind of a bit weird to operate with. Let's
Yeah.
go with question 8.
Question 8. So we've kind of talked about this a little bit, haven't we? Already, we've kind of discussed this, but let's talk a little bit more. So, the
Yeah,
question for Muhammad. Muhammad might be blown away by this too. So, Muhammad, what do you think about this? So, what do you think of Muslims using the Hadith as a secondary source after the Quran? And then, as we explained it to him a bit more, and we can talk about Bukhari, for example, he might say, "Wait a minute, there's this guy who." A few hundred years after me, or however long it was, collected tens and tens of thousands of things I said, and that's being used as a basis for Islam. Damn, maybe I should have paid more attention to what I was saying to make sure it all made sense.
yeah,
I think Muhammad might be. There's one interpretation where Muhammad will be, well, of course, everything I say is great and it should be followed by Muslims and it's a good guide for the Muslim community. And then another would be like, what, really? Like all these things.
takbir.
I think where Muhammad might also be shocked is the way that, well, I'm gonna move because the sun is right in my eye. I'm being blessed by the sunlight of God right now as I speak about this
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
all this blasphemy. So I think he might be stunned to know this process of how these hadith were authenticated, and I would say now that I'm no longer a believer, how flimsy it kind of is, because the way I'm gonna be very simple, like I'm gonna oversimplify it, but basically, you would take a hadith and then you would check the lineage of how it was passed on from generation to generation, person to person, and if you found that there were multiple sources and that the people who transmitted the narrative are known, trusted Muslim individuals, then it's a-okay. But as anyone who's played the
yeah,
telephone game knows, that things can get very quickly and very easily
yeah.
changed, depending on the agendas of the first Muslims, the Sahaba. Like maybe there's some that had an agenda against another Muslim, or wanted something to be pushed forward.
Game of telephone. Yeah.
Yeah. Lots to talk about here, but just for the sake of simplicity, do you think Muhammad would like this, or he would find
I
problems
think
with it?
I think he'd cherry pick some hadith verses because there are some hadiths that
He might
kinda make
he
him.
might go in. Sorry to interrupt you. He might go in and say, "Actually, can I take a look and cut some of these out?"
Yeah, because there are some hadiths that make him out to be a little bit of a pussy. I'll share one with you, and I'll actually give you the backstory. So I want to ask you, Secretary Spirit, do you know about a man?
Yes, yeah, of course, yeah. But
Yeah. So
please explain to people who might not be familiar.
to those who don't know, shit, I almost turned off my microphone. Um, to those who don't know who Musaylima ibn Khattab or Musaylima the liar is, basically You know how in the Quran it gives you a challenge where it says, if you do not believe the surah is from God, then produce one like it. Someone actually did accomplish that. And they actually, someone named Musaylima actually managed to convince the people during the Prophet Muhammad's time that this Quran was a revelation from God. His word, he was a prophet of God. And Muhammad didn't like this. Muhammad really didn't like it. And I'll even show you a hadith on here that made Muhammad to be a little bit insecure. So if you read it here, do you see it?
Maybe zoom in a little bit. It's a little bit tough to read.
Is this better?
A little bit more.
No problem. Is this better?
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Alright.
Please, please.
So Nu'aym ibn Mas'ud reported, I heard the Messenger of Allah, peace him, speaking to those who were reading the letter of the false prophet Musaylima the liar, saying, what do you both say? They said, we say what he said. The prophet said, by Allah, were it not that diplomats are not killed, I would have striked both your necks. So what he's saying is that if it were not that diplomats are not killed, I would strike both your necks. Meaning that if the people making the laws there were dead, if the people there were still alive, by Allah, if it were that these people had been dead, I would strike both your necks. The lawgivers there
had not been dead.
Yes, so it says, were it not that the diplomats are
were
not
it not
killed.
Oh my god, that's like such a weird way of writing
I
that.
don't know why
Okay, but
you
I
would
get it.
phrase that.
The
but
double
anyway.
negative. Yeah. Go ahead. Okay.
Were it not that the diplomats are not killed, I would strike both your necks. So he's saying that, I would strike both your necks if the lawgivers were dead because of what you're doing and what you're preaching. And obviously, and Muslim, I'll tell you a bit more about this story. Muslim with the lion actually turned out to convince a lot of people about the Quran. And you'll read, obviously, there's so many videos online. It's hilarious. Did you read about Surah Al-Jilu?
No. Tell me about it.
It's a Surah Corona. It's so hilarious. It's so funny.
Oh, Surah Corona. Yeah. Okay.
When I played, I died. But anyway, where was I? Yeah. Muslim with the lie actually managed to convince so many people that of his religion, and then it would go even further to then Prophet Muhammad would then write a letter saying XYZ from the Prophet of Allah to Muslim the liar from Prophet of Allah, and then Muslim the liar would rage bait him saying, "Oh yes, from the Prophet to the Prophet of Allah from Prophet of Allah." It was so hilarious reading that, and he would rage bait Muhammad so much to the point where when it actually became for them to face, Muhammad killed him in battle. So I don't think Muhammad would like people to know that he was too much of a pussy to prove his religion true after learning about Musaylima the liar. I think he'd want that cut out. I don't think he likes the fact that me and you know that. So
yeah, you can tell who ended up winning that confrontation by the fact that he's known as the liar.
Exactly.
That's a nice little bit of PR there that he'll forever be known in history as the liar.
Exactly, by someone called Alien. Peak rage bait. Peak rage bait. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And also, hello there to you too, Late Night Kaiju. And yes, I am the deep bass guy.
The deep bass guy. Hi, Late Night Kaiju. Okay, so let's jump to question 9. We're coming to the end here. Again, I just want to remind everyone.
Can I have another comment, please? This is so funny. Nah, I would not want to meet Muhammad. I'd be scared for my life.
That's from Alien.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, but before we get to the last 2 questions, I just want to tell everyone, if you like this video, if you liked our back and forth, let us know in the comments. I would love to have you on again on the channel as a guest host.
I would love to be here. Yeah.
I also want to tell people, if you would be interested in more content from Mikhail, just on his own, maybe on his own channel or something, let him know in the comments too.
Please do. Yeah, I have a TikTok channel and an Instagram account. You guys can follow. You guys can
great. So what I'll do is, if you can send me those links, I'll add them to the video description for people to follow.
I'll send you. I'll give you. Yeah. So I'll send you the. How do I even send? I'll just do it via.
We'll talk about it afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
over there.
Question 9, Muhammad. This one is very relevant to us. So we're
Yeah,
talking to Muhammad. Muhammad, by the way, we used to be Muslim,
yeah.
and we left Islam because we didn't think it was real. What do you
And
think
did
about
you?
us now? And the thing is, we're punishable. Like it's punishable by death what we're doing. So why is it like this? Like why do apostates have to suffer these consequences? What do you think he would say?
I think he. I think this is pretty clear cut. I don't. Well, this was actually. I don't. I think this is kind of self-explanatory, but when you're organizing a framework because you are desperately trying to control a herd as a scared, power-hungry individual, anyone who deviates from the path you want them to go on, you would be willing, more than willing enough to resort to violence. Also, that sun
I
is,
know, right? It's
yeah.
right in my face. And I
You
have
know,
a curtain up and everything too, doesn't matter. Oh, it
do you
subsided a
can you
little
like
bit.
take one of your books and just like cover it or something?
But yeah,
Also,
please go ahead.
I just want a quick comment. This bookshelf arrangement you have, I
Yeah.
need that in my bedroom right now. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, where was I? Yeah. So anyone who deviates from that path, ultimately, yeah, that absolutely he's going to consider killing them. It's pretty self-explanatory. I don't understand why anyone would actually, like, with all due respect, I don't understand why anyone would want to ponder about that. Like, that's like asking, why would the King James behead you if you committed treason? You know what I mean? Like,
Well, that's the thing that's connected to it, and I think it's something that I would say non-Muslims might not fully understand how ingrained Islam is in a society. If you leave Islam, it is departing from the tight knit fabric of the society. It really is like a betrayal. It's like you've gone somewhere else. You're no longer part of the community. And I would encourage people to look into the history of Christianity when it comes to those things, and looking at uh, the conflicts between the Catholics and the Protestants, and going back to the 1600s, 1500s, where there was a very similar violent backlash against people who switched to another denomination, and that's within the same religion, still believing the same God supposedly. And you can see it with the schism that happened in Islam very early
mhm,
on too. So
yeah.
it's not as if it's this mind-blowing thing. I would say once you understand all of that context, what we are doing, especially, and what you'll hear from some apologists, they might say someone just leaving Islam and then continuing with their lives, and maybe just pretending to pray and go to the mosque, that doesn't really matter. What matters is the Muslims like me and you, where we're actually, you could argue, proselytizing against Islam and contributing maybe to some people leaving Islam. That's where you're sowing discord in the Muslim community, and that's why you've got to go.
I mean, it's not really rational. It's more of like just a scare tactic slash fear response.
Which is
I
a lot
mean,
of Islam. That's how a lot of Islam
you
works.
know exactly, and you'll hear this, and I call him. I saw a video online. You know, Asim al Hakim, or as I like to call him, Hatim al Hakim. Uh,
It sounds vaguely familiar. Refresh my memory.
Indonesian preacher charges $110 to call with him for an hour.
Yeah, yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah, go ahead.
Asim al Hakim, you've never heard of him?
No, no, I don't think so.
Posted.
Like I think it sounds familiar, but yeah, to anyone who is watching too who might not be familiar.
He's an Indonesian Islamic preacher,
Hmm.
and you'll know him charges people $110 to talk with him for an hour, which is an outrageous price to talk to someone that foolish. He actually he actually discussed with, I think it was a friend of his, a young man, uh, why about Islam spreading, global spreading of Islam, and he even spoke about the violence aspect, how people are literally being put to the sword because then unless they accept Islam. And then he was like, so what? Because of that, we have all these people coming into the religion. So what if it gets pushed by this? And I feel like that lack of sympathy, that lack of humanity, or that lack of, when I mean humanity, like emotional resonant humanity, it's indicative of how religious indoctrination can really, really control you. And obviously, for him, you don't understand why he definitely condone apostasy killings. Like someone like him who's so detached from who literally sees non-Muslims as subhuman. You don't see them as human.
And then that
It's
ties to what we were talking about in terms of this is all part of God's plan.
yeah.
You could definitely see the mindset where ex-Muslims like me, well, we've been corrupted by the West, first of all, but second of all, we're all part of God's plan as this test of steering the true faithful, the true mu'mineen from their faith. And so it's part of God's plan that we stray and then suffer for it, because that's the way that's the way the plan has to be. So in that way, when you look at it, we like our souls being condemned to damnation is part of this greater good, right? That's why we've been created, to be an example of what not to do, essentially.
Seems like God is being a bit of a utilitarian, but that would
Hey,
negate.
that's why you exist.
But then again, that would negate Islamic theology, because if he were truly utilitarian, he wouldn't favor a prostitute who fed a dog, nor would he favor a murderer who killed 100 people just for trying to repent. So it's very weird. It's like sometimes he plays utilitarian, sometimes he doesn't. So I don't know. But anyway,
It's almost like it might be man-made, but yeah.
أعوذ بالله.
Going back to that first
Takfir,
question.
takfir.
Yeah.
Number 10.
Number 10, the final question for you, Muhammad, before we have to hop onto our time travel machine and go back to the present. Muhammad, do you want to come with us actually to the present and see what it's like? Yeah, okay, hop on. What do you think about Islam today? Look at it, like, mashallah, we're 2 billion strong, fastest growing religion, because birth control is bad, according to us. What would you change about Islam today? Are you happy with how it is? And tied to that, which Muslims represent Islam the best? Is it the Salafis? Maybe seems like it might be. If you think about it logically, what do you think Muhammad would say?
I think he'd really be disgusted.
With what?
I think
Our
he'd
corruption.
I think he'd really, really like. I think he'd obviously take personal fame, but I think he would he would feel murderous when he hears about the pink washing. What the hell do you mean? Like they're women? I was obviously talking about children.
He will summon, what's his name, Mustafa. What's his last name?
Mustafa ibn Khattab.
First person for the
First person.
first person whose head is gone.
Yeah. How dare you? I did not say this. I meant another different thing. You hamar. But anyway, like he would really be angry. He would be incredibly angry. Do you think me and you could actually have a chance at answering this question? What would you change about Islam today?
Okay. I mean,
would you like to go first or whatever?
Yeah, sure, I'll go first. Yeah, in a lot of things, I try to be a bit nuanced and balanced, and give each side their due, what's due to them. But when it comes to Islam, I'm really all or nothing in terms of what would I change about Islam. I would have it so that people of their own volition no longer want to practice it and move away from it. I don't believe in. I know that there's a good argument to be made that trying to fight for a more moderate, reformed Islam that's more progressive and that cuts out parts of the teachings, the tradition that are very harmful, like getting rid of, like maybe having like a queer-friendly Islam or a feminist Islam. I get it, but for me, as I mentioned earlier, I think even the most stripped down, basic, fundamental form of Islam is harmful, and I would change it by making it so that people no longer need it.
I don't think that's a goal. I don't think that's a goal. With all due respect, I know you're a very powerful man, obviously, with your large fan base and your charm, but I don't even think even you could accomplish that. And I'll tell you why.
No.
I'll tell you why. You agree with me, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's the way I would look at it is, so it's not a realistic thing that's going to happen anytime soon, maybe ever. But I think by pushing this viewpoint, I can help shift the conversation perhaps more towards the reformed, progressive kind of Islam, if that makes sense. I see myself as an extremist to kind of push, like, let's say I'm a leftist. I want to push it more to the middle than to the right, if that makes sense.
I mean, an even balance can always be cohesive and conducive to flourishing, but again, sometimes people are just naturally resistant to flourishing. But I will say, not flourishing, balance.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I will say this. So, dating back to the inception of humanity, questions surrounding death, meaning, purpose, and afterlives are just as aggressively wrestled with as they are at the present moment. Not a single person on this earth does not believe that they have an idea about what purpose is. Anyone with any concept of something chooses either to answer that question or not. Everyone has a turn in answering that question. Religion serves as a brilliant answer because it targets not just one of those things; it targets all of them. It gives you a purpose, gives you meaning, gives you hope,
And it's unfalsifiable.
and it's unfalsifiable.
And you can create a specific version of it that speaks to you specifically, even if others might disagree with it. And there's no way someone could say that it's invalid. And I think that speaks to the power of Islam and Christianity too, in how it's so simple in a way where you can really just get away with stripping down all the things. You can say, I am a Muslim. I believe that Muhammad is the prophet, and I submit to Allah, and that's all I need. And from Christians, they can just say, I surrender myself to Jesus and seek salvation from Him.
As a wise
That's
person
it.
once told me,
That's it.
the orchestration of saving one's mind, body, and spirit is the autonomy to choose between the things that they deem
Mm,
the best or the worst of themselves. It's autonomy that saves us, not just the act of deciding, but simply
mm,
having control over all of it is the one thing that will save us. Total
mm,
control. But now, back to what I was saying. Religion has an answer to all of those things. It gives people a foundation of which they can work forward from, sorry. And Islam is unique in the sense that it's one of the few religions that actually preach pure monotheism. It teaches there is one God who has ordained this life plan for you. He sent all these revelations down. He wants you to come to him. There's a preacher who once said, if you walk to Allah, he will run to you. If you crawl to Allah, he will walk to you. Allah wants you to come to him, repent to him. And I always thought that asking forgiveness for just simply being human is just a bit ridiculous. But religion answers all those questions. And I look at Muslims, and I don't, and I'm not the typical Islamophobe who just thinks all Muslims are evil, pedophilic bastards. I think they're real people with real concerns, and they resorted to a religion that condones awful things simply because they're too scared to confront the reality that me and you right now, this very moment, are trying to confront. They are too scared to deconstruct. And I can tell you agree. They are too frightened to escape indoctrination because I gotta be honest, every human being in this planet is deemed a threshold of fear. And for some, that threshold of fear, religion like really, really ups the ante on that threshold. There are so many people who are incredibly scared, and they resort to bad apologetics. They resort to unfalsifiable claims. They resort to, you know, debatable truth claims. They resort to, you know, f- debatable miraculous claims just to save this one ideology that not only resonates best with them, but gives meaning in their lives. Like I previously mentioned earlier, religion is heavily intertwined with identity, heavily intertwined with your culture, your family. You leave the religion, you lose everything. And I don't mean this in a figurative way. You lose literally everything. You lose your family, you lose your friends, you lose yourself. You don't feel like, even when I became a non Muslim, I always struggled with giving myself an identity. Even now, I always struggle with who I am. And religion really exacerbated that. Because without religion, then what am I? You know? And that's a question I'm still answering today.
mhm.
And so far, I'm yet to give an answer, but inshallah, I'll get one.
Inshallah. Yeah.
But like, I want to say one more thing, and then I'll obviously we'll imagine what Muhammad would say to the second question, then we'll answer it ourselves. So to the second part of the question,
Ex-Muslim lady says
he would
Muhammad would
lose
lose
his
his
mind.
mind over the hijabi influencers on
He
social
would,
media.
he would,
He
he
would.
would,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
would. But yeah. Oh, there's another question. Do you mind if we take one more question? Because this one is a very interesting one. It's by Ashley. It says, "How do you think the written Quran came to be?"
Okay, we'll save that one for in a second.
Save that, but
Let's
let's attack
say
this one.
which let's finish off by saying which Muslims would Muhammad say represent
Yeah.
Islam the best? Do you think it's the Salafis? Would you think he would say that? To the point where they're using the same kind of toothbrush mechanisms that Muhammad used back in the day?
Uh, Probably, yeah. Salafis are pretty, yeah, pretty fucked up. So I'd say Salafis are probably the best. Or dare I say it, some Shia Muslims. Dare I say it?
It kind of makes
I
sense in a
mean,
way, right?
yeah, I guess, I guess. My sister is so critical of Islam, but still feels the need to cling on to it. Um, well, yeah, like even my own sibling, my sister is also critical of Islam, but again, you know, with young women, young people in general, not just women, but young people, religion is really hard, especially for them to leave because like they're young, they're not fully there yet in terms of reasoning, critical reasoning. Like I myself, I was gifted with like I'm the lucky one here. I was gifted with being able to have the strength and the will to have the chance, but some people just simply don't have that. It's not an indictment of their character, it's just what threshold they've been given. It is a valid take, trust me, of Shia Islam being an accurate representation of Islam. It is a valid take. But yeah, how do you think the written Quran came to be? Would you like to answer first, or I will?
I really don't know enough to be able to give like an academic answer. I can just give my speculation from things I like, little bits and pieces I've learned. There were collections of things that people remembered, that the first Muslims remembered. Maybe some scraps that were written down, and then when it got collected later on after Muhammad died, who knows what happened? Who knows?
Um, I'd say I need some time to think about this. Because as far as I'm concerned, the written Quran scripts, I think they came to be primarily because Muhammad had a lot of scribers. So, as you know, apparently, I don't know whether this is true or not, but apparently Muhammad, the whole shtick about Muhammad being illiterate is complete folly. Actually, he was. But I do know for a fact, this is something I'm not skeptical about. Oral tradition was very prominent. Like people didn't really need to read or write to repeat something orally, right? We still had that level of comprehension available to us. Uh, so what I think happened is that let's assuming that Muhammad didn't know how to read or write. I think what happened was, and this is what I know, he probably just said all his teachings. He probably lived his life. He probably had did his sermons, and his scribers would be adding this onto the Quran, and also be adding on to it. They would also be adding this onto his discoveries, his teachings, and you'll know this because the Quran just basically plagiarized a lot of Jewish literature and a lot of Greek science discoveries. I'm gonna. Can I just give you an example so that I can solidify it?
Yeah.
Look up chapter 86, verse 5 through 7. Just pull it up on the screen because this is a one that's really gonna mess people up. Also, I want to introduce you to another interesting Quran chapter after this, just to prove a point. But yeah, so it says, "Let the people consider what they were created from," and then it scroll down. It says they were created from a spurting fluid stemming from between the backbone and the rib cage. So the classical tafsir is saying that this reproductive fluid, this spurting fluid, is actually reproductive fluid, which is semen. I have a question for you, secular spirit. This is an honest question because I'm an uneducated. Do men ejaculate from their back?
Not last I checked. Maybe some
Not
people
loud.
do.
Like, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Like the last time I heard when women not women when surgeons perform vasectomies, they don't usually operate on the patient's back, right? Like they usually go to the testicles, right?
Yeah.
So I have a question. Why is this like if you read the first verse, the first word yakhruju, first word there, here, yakhruju min bayni al-sulbi wa al even even Ibn Abbas, I believe, or Ibn Kathir, he was in saying that the taraib is referring to the place where the necklace rests, so your backbone, your rib cage, right? And some Muslim apologists say that, oh, but this is referring to embryonic development, how the testes fall. And I'm like, the spermatogenesis does not happen during pregnancy. Like, and also, I'm trying to make this as simple as possible for people who are not like really as educated on anatomy. But spermatogenesis, the creation of sperm, doesn't happen during the when a woman is pregnant, and also the embryo itself does not have its testes near its backbone and ribs. So this verse is just plagiarizing what Galen thought, which was he believed that the sperm was just like something that was an essence of the human that came out of the backbone ribs, which was later disproved as we found out that, oh wait, no, we have balls, and balls have semen, and semen comes from the penis. But yeah, that's that. But that was really the same discovery there. And I also want to show you another interesting verse. I don't think you know this one. This is interesting. Nothing to do with it, but it's very interesting. Chapter 2, verse 106.
Just give me one moment.
This one, you are going to really find it interesting. So please read it out for the people who are listening.
All right. Chapter 2, verse 106. If we ever abrogate a verse or cause it to be forgotten, we replace it with a better or similar one. Do you not know that Allah is most capable of everything?
So I have a question for you.
Sometimes perfection needs to be improved. Didn't you know this?
I thought, but hold on. Question. I thought perfection kind of implies like an incapacity of being improved. Like literally like perfect, not like not needing improvement.
Bless you, bless you. Allah
Alhamdulillah.
bless you. It's one of those things where I definitely read this verse a million times, and yet when you're a believer, you don't ask that question of, wait a second, why would perfection need to be
Yeah, like
improved?
why would perfection like why like why would Allah need to abrogate his verses? Some people say about oh oh you know sometimes you have to adjust the Quran just for people to like for different communities. And I said, if it's really, I'm truly surprised more people do not see abrogation as the mark of a human. Exactly. But like, but like we have to adjust for communities, and one question is, why would you need to adjust a perfect book just because it's being applied to a different community? A
Well,
perfect
one
book.
explanation might be that at that specific moment in time, the Muslim community needed to hear a certain version of this verse, but then once certain things had come to pass, they could receive a different version.
Well, so this is a funny ass hadith that I want to like show you guys. Same thing we were talking about here. I'm gonna stream this and show you. I have so many hadiths. Like no Muslims ain't got nothing on me. But yeah, like let me show you. There we go. Here it is. Do you see it?
Maybe zoom in a little bit more.
Yeah, don't mind the obviously grotesque title. Oh, that's way too far back. Do you read it? Do you see it
The
now?
chapters, breastfeeding an adult is the name of the
Yeah.
chapter. Okay.
Wow. A'udhu billah. But yeah, let's read this verse. So the verse of stoning and of breastfeeding an adult 10 times was revealed, and the paper was with me under my pillow. When the messenger of Allah died, we were preoccupied with his death, and the tame sheep came and ate it.
Okay.
um, yeah. So
And these
this,
verses were abrogated in recitation, but not ruling. Okay.
so what this basically means is Allah wasn't happy with his original draft and decided to send a sheep to eat it to then give a better draft.
A sheep doing, I did not know this, doing divine bidding.
And this is Sunan ibn Majah. This is another one of the most authentic hadiths that
Can
exist.
you see now why some Qur'anist, like some Muslim Qur'anists exist? Once
Like,
they hear of things like that, oh, all of that clearly, that
it's
clearly didn't
so
happen. Or
powerful.
maybe it did happen. Maybe a sheep came along, but because that sheep was hungry or something.
Like, I will never ever understand it. Like, how do people
No.
not see it?
When you're a
Goodness me.
believer, it's really really hard
But
to say.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh goodness me. But
Mikhail, shall we wrap this up?
I mean, I wanna see if I can. I want to see if I can ask. Just, do you mind if I just answer a few questions people may have? Like, just maybe one or three. Do you think just like maybe 10 minutes for that or what?
Let's
Do you
see.
mind?
What questions did you have in mind?
No. For people in the chat to ask
Oh,
any
okay.
questions.
All right.
You
So
guys,
everyone, before
yeah,
we wrap things up,
yeah,
if you have any questions that in particular you want to ask Mikhail before we go off air, ask them right now. And
yeah.
while people are doing that, I'm gonna just check the final results of the poll question. Who would you visit if you could time travel to the past? Whoa, an upset at the very last minute. Jesus has surpassed Muhammad with
That is
35% of the votes.
my goodness.
Yeah, third is Buddha with 16%. So who
Wait,
would you
who?
visit if you could
Muhammad
time
won or
travel
what?
to the past?
Muhammad won or was it Jesus?
Jesus looks like he's the winner to me.
My
35%. You can still
goodness.
vote or change your vote if you want to change things, if you want to sway the vote.
But yeah, anyone here who has any questions or any inquiries or anything they want to ask of me, I'm open to answering any
Well,
question.
Ben, thank you so much as always for moderating. Ben says another live cast would be nice. How about this, Mikhail? We'll give people more of a chance to ask you questions, and then maybe we can discuss them on my channel or perhaps a future YouTube channel of yours. Who knows?
Maybe. I mean, I want to
And
be careful. Yeah.
and you be careful. That's the number one priority. I'm gonna add his social media accounts in
Yeah.
the video description. You just send me those. But yeah,
Yeah. Just I'll give you my Instagram and I'll
yeah,
just give you over my TikTok.
sounds good.
Any other questions in the chat people may have for me?
No,
I'm more than open to it.
yeah, looks
Just
like that's it, unfortunately. But yeah, we discussed a lot, so I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for tuning in. This was a really fun one. It was really great doing this with you. It's such a serious topic, but I think we managed to get some fun out of it when we had the chance. I want to tell everyone again, don't forget to like this video if you like this, and subscribe to the channel, and please comment.
Oh.
Let us know if you want to see us do something like this again.
Before you cut off, some people have asked a question.
Are you a voice
someone
actor?
asked me, "Am I a voice actor?" I'm actually trying out some lines for like different lines of actions. The problem with me is that my voice is actually too low for some characters, so I have to like try and manage anyway. But I'm great for playing boss characters in video games. Here's another like opinions on the election last night, the Islamic doomsday clock. I didn't vote last night. I didn't vote at all. Just wasn't
The
really.
UK election, and I must confess I haven't been following it, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I don't really follow it either. Most of what I'll be honest with you, not a single party has even an iota of a good idea. So I just let it go. I mean, my friend says she likes the liberal Democrats. I don't really know why she does, but anyway. Oh, another question. What do you think is the most fundamental difference between hell, whether in Islam, with that terms whether they go to hell or heaven? Is this their level of patience? you can answer this on another live cast if you want. No, I'll answer it right here. What do you think is the fundamental difference in Islam that determines whether or not they go to hell or heaven? Simple. It is niyah and also iman, belief in Allah. Like, it is made clear that believing in Allah is the only thing that will give you even a chance of going to heaven. Like,
Mm.
hell is completely off. Heaven is completely off limits for you. If you are a non-believer who heard the message of Islam. So the fundamental difference is not level of patience. Level of patience, yeah, I guess, but also it's fundamentally just iman and having belief in Allah is the only. It's the common denominator. It's the only thing really. Um, you'll see even Haram Doodles. You know her. You collaborate with her many times. She's posted on her
Yeah,
story
yeah, of course.
that that in the Quran it says, "Don't. Why do you take? Don't. Why do you fear for the something about fearing for the polytheists? They are companions of the hellfire." Um, yeah. So that's just realistically that like that right there just tells me only a man can get you there. No, no problem, Ashley. And please, feel free to anyone here. Feel free to reach out to me. Ask any questions. I'll make time to answer all of them. Just all I ask is that you guys are just here always asking. I always love to answer questions. I love having a platform to talk to people, and I especially love collaborating with people such as Sick the Spirit, people
Thank you
who
so much.
who endorse these lovely communities of talking with people. So yeah, I can imagine you in some anime. Fun fact: I will say this: there's a video out there, not an anime, but there's a video out there I actually voice acted in, and I played one of the characters, and it was Our Drawings, the movie. It was a meme of it was where the meme the beatboxing puppy came out, if you remember, and I played the crazy ass art teacher, and I usually appear. The main timestamp I appear is 42:21, where I say something like, "Good evening, students. You may be wondering why you could," and, stuff like that. But yeah, that was one cartoon I was a part of. It was interesting. Just why? Oh, this is not even a question for me. I just thought they were asking another question. Anyone else have any other? I don't know what the Islamic doomsday clock is. I'll look that up.
No, me neither. Yeah, I'm gonna look it up too.
Yeah. Anyone else have any other questions? And if not, then I guess we'll just have to wrap it up.
Yeah, yeah. We'll just see if people have questions once they're watching this after we go off air. We'll ask them to leave it in the comments if they make it this
Yeah,
far in the
yeah, yeah,
video. Yeah.
yeah.
So great job, Mikhail. I had a lot of fun doing this.
So did I.
And yeah, take care, everyone. I'll be back with another video soon, and one with Apostate Aladdin actually. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, okay. Take care,
Right.
everyone.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Bye bye.